The crystalline spires of House Maris caught the twin suns of Aethera Prime, splintering light into 1,000 colors across the grand reception hall. Aaron Cade adjusted his formal diplomatic attire, tugging at the high collar that felt like it was slowly choking him. 6 months of preparation for this posting as cultural attaché, and nothing had adequately prepared him for the overwhelming grandeur of Aetherian nobility. "Remember," Ambassador Pharaoh murmured beside him, her eyes fixed forward as they processed through the hall. "The Aetherians value composure above all else. You represent humanity tonight." Aaron nodded slightly, his gaze drawn to the raised dais at the end of the hall where the ruling family stood. They were unmistakable, tall, willowy figures with skin in various shades of violet, their eyes large and luminous. But it was the woman standing at the matriarch's right hand who commanded his attention. Lady Kaylee Sire, heir to House Maris. Even from this distance, her presence was magnetic, her posture was perfect, her expression a study in controlled serenity. Unlike the elaborate headdresses of the other nobles, she wore her silver-white hair pulled back in a simple but elegant style that accentuated the sharp angles of her face. "That's the heir," Pharaoh whispered. "Lady Kaylee, brilliant strategist, they say, and completely devoted to Aetherian tradition." As they approached the dais, Aaron caught Kaylee's gaze. For the briefest moment, something flickered in those large, silver eyes. Curiosity, perhaps? Assessment? Then it was gone, replaced by the same cool formality she showed everyone else. The matriarch stepped forward. Lady Argala Sire was imposing, her violet skin deeper in tone than her daughter's, lined with age but no less striking. The ceremonial robes she wore seemed to absorb and refract light simultaneously. "Ambassador Pharaoh," she acknowledged with a slight inclination of her head. "House Maris welcomes humanity's delegation." Her voice was melodic, but carried an edge of steel. "Lady Argala," Pharaoh replied with a formal bow. "May I present Cultural Attaché Aaron Cade, recently arrived to advise on human-Aetherian relations." Aaron stepped forward and executed the precise bow he'd practiced for weeks. "Lady Argala, it is an honor to be received by House Maris." "Indeed." Lady Argala's gaze was appraising, cool. "We shall see what perspective humanity brings to our ancient house." She gestured to her right. "My daughter and heir, Lady Kaylee Sire." Kaylee stepped forward, and Aaron was struck by her height. She stood nearly a head taller than him, her movements fluid and graceful. "Cultural attaché," she said, her voice surprisingly warm compared to her mother's. "Welcome to Aethera Prime." "Lady Kaylee," he responded, bowing again. "The honor is mine." As he straightened, the massive starlight chandeliers overhead caught his attention, intricate crystalline structures that seemed to hold fragments of actual stars within them, illuminating the hall with light that felt alive. "Impressive, aren't they?" Kaylee noted, following his gaze. "They've hung in this hall for 20 generations, a reminder of our ancestors' mastery of both science and art." "They're extraordinary," Aaron said honestly. "Yes," Kaylee agreed, though something in her tone suggested complexity. "Extraordinary and unchanging." Before Aaron could respond, a chime sounded through the hall. "The Unity ceremonial dance begins," Lady Argala announced, cultural attaché, as our honored guest. "You will participate." Aaron froze. "I participate? I wasn't briefed on—" Ambassador Pharaoh shot him a warning glance. "It is a simple ritual," Kaylee interjected smoothly. "I shall guide you through it." As the assembled nobles moved toward the center of the hall, Kaylee led Aaron to a circular platform that rose slightly from the floor. Embedded within it was what looked like a control console, with lights pulsing in rhythmic patterns. "Place your right hand here," Kaylee instructed, indicating a flat panel on the console. The dance is mostly symbolic these days, a representation of how Ethera brings different elements into harmony. Aaron did as instructed, trying to ignore the hundreds of eyes upon them. "What exactly does this console do?" "It reads biometric signatures," Kaylee explained, placing her own slender hand on a parallel panel. Originally, it was used for actual genetic compatibility testing during arranged marriages. Now it simply coordinates the light and sound elements of the ceremony. Music began to fill the hall, strange, haunting tones that seemed to vibrate from the crystals themselves. The platform beneath them illuminated with swirling patterns that matched the tempo. "Now we move," Kaylee said, beginning a series of graceful steps around the console. Aaron followed her lead, grateful for the dance lessons that had been part of his diplomatic training. The movements weren't complex, but they required precise timing as they circled the console, occasionally placing their hands back on the panels when lights flashed. As they moved, Aaron noticed Kaylee's expression softening slightly, becoming less formal. "You adapt quickly," she remarked during one turn. "High praise from an Etheran," he replied with a small smile. For the first time, he saw the hint of amusement in her silver eyes. "Perhaps humans are more adaptable than our histories suggest." The music intensified, and the platform beneath them pulsed with increasing energy. Aaron felt a strange tingling in his palm each time he touched the panel. "Final sequence," Kaylee murmured as they completed another circuit. "When the central crystal glows, we place both hands on our panel simultaneously." The crowd around them had formed concentric circles, moving in patterns that complemented their central dance. Above them, the chandeliers seemed to pulse in response to the music, casting ever-changing patterns of light across the assembly. The central crystal of the console began to glow, building from a soft luminescence to an intense silver blue. "Now," Kaylee said, and they both placed their hands firmly on the panels. A surge of energy coursed through the platform. Aaron felt a sharp prick in his palm, startling him. He instinctively reached out with his other hand, and in that unscripted moment, his fingers brushed against Kaylee's. The console between them flashed brilliantly, not silver blue, but a vivid, pulsing red. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. Kaylee staggered backward, her composure shattered, one hand flying to her abdomen. "What?" Aaron began, but fell silent as he saw the display on the console. Symbols flashed in Ethyran script, but one image was unmistakable, a genetic helix, half illuminated in human blue, half in Ethyran violet. "Impossible!" Lady Argala's voice cut through the stunned silence as she stepped onto the platform. "This is impossible." Kaylee's face had drained of color, leaving her skin a pale lavender. Her eyes were wide with shock as she stared at Aaron. "The injector," she whispered. "The biometric stem injector activated." "What injector?" Aaron asked, his heart pounding. An Etheran official rushed to the console, frantically working the controls. After a moment, he looked up at Lady Argala, his expression grave. "It is confirmed, my lady. The Unity console has registered a successful conception in Lady Kaylee's gestational chamber. The genetic markers are human." The hall erupted in chaos. Aaron stood frozen, the words not fully registering until Ambassador Pharaoh grabbed his arm. "What have you done?" she hissed. "Nothing," Aaron protested. "I followed the dance exactly as instructed." Lady Argala's face had transformed into a mask of cold fury. "Secure them both," she commanded. "This abomination must be contained." Guards moved forward, but Kylie suddenly straightened, her composure returning like a shield. "No," she said, her voice carrying authority despite its tremor. "The unity ceremony is sacred. No one is to be detained during its observance." She fixed her gaze on her mother. "That is our law, is it not, Mother?" Lady Argala's eyes narrowed, but she nodded stiffly. "The ceremony must conclude properly. Then we shall address this incident." Kaylee turned to Iran, her expression unreadable. "Cultural attaché, we must complete the final movement." Stunned, Aaron could only nod. They resumed their positions, though everything had changed. The once harmonious music now seemed discordant, the lights harsh rather than beautiful. They completed the dance in rigid movements, no longer fluid, but mechanical. When the final note sounded and the console dimmed, Aaron felt as though he'd aged years in minutes. Ambassador Pharaoh immediately stepped between him and the approaching guards. "As Earth's representative, I invoke diplomatic protocol. Cultural attaché, Cade returns to the embassy compound until this matter is formally addressed." Lady Argala's expression could have frozen the twin sons of Aethera. "Very well, Ambassador. But know this. Cross-species conception is a capital offense under House Maris law. Your attaché has violated our most sacred codes." As guards escorted them toward the exit, Aaron caught a final glimpse of Kaylee. She stood alone on the platform, one hand still pressed to her abdomen, her eyes following him with an expression he couldn't decipher. Fear, anger, or something else entirely. Above her, one of the ancient starlight chandeliers had developed a crack, a single fissure running through its crystalline structure. Like the traditions of House Maris, it remained intact, but now irrevocably changed. The embassy compound felt like a prison, despite its comfortable accommodations. Aaron paced the length of his quarters for what must have been the 100th time, running his hand through his already disheveled hair. "You need to sit down," Ambassador Pharaoh said firmly. She sat at his desk, surrounded by data slates and diplomatic communications. "Wearing a path in the floor won't change anything." "I impregnated an alien noblewoman," Aaron said, the words still sounding absurd to his ears. "Without consent, without even knowing it was possible." "The Aetherans have been deliberately vague about their reproductive biology," Pharaoh replied, her tone measured. "From what little they've shared, they use gestational chambers, internal organs that can remain dormant for decades until deliberately activated. The Unity console apparently contained a biometric stem injector that transferred your genetic markers. But why would they design a ceremonial console that could do this?" "It's ancient technology, repurposed for tradition," Pharaoh explained. "According to our xenoculture briefings, it dates back to when Aethyran reproduction required direct genetic sampling from both partners. The injector would have been a critical tool then." Aaron collapsed into a chair. "And nobody thought to mention this to me? Because it was supposed to be deactivated millennia ago." Pharaoh's expression softened slightly. "This wasn't your fault, Cade, but it is now your problem. What happens now?" "I've been in communication with the Aethyran Council. House Maris is divided on how to proceed. The matriarch is invoking ancient purity laws that would..." She hesitated. "That would what?" "Terminate the pregnancy and possibly seek punitive measures against you." Aaron felt sick. "And Lady Kaylee? What does she want?" "Unknown. She's been sequestered since the ceremony. Only House Maris's inner circle has access to her." A chime sounded, and Pharaoh's aide appeared in the doorway. "Ambassador, there's an Aethyran physician requesting entry. Says she's been sent by House Maris." Pharaoh and Aaron exchanged looks. "Send her in," Pharaoh decided. The Athyran who entered was older, her violet skin bearing the silvery markings of age. She wore the formal robes of what Aaron recognized as a high-ranking medical official. "I am Dr. Yelena Rez, Chief Xenogeneticist of House Maris." She introduced herself with a formal bow. "I have been sent to examine Cultural Attaché Cade." "Examine me?" Aaron stood, alarmed. "For what purpose?" "To determine the viability of the conception," Dr. Rez stated matter-of-factly, "and to assess potential compatibility issues." "Is Lady Kaylee all right?" Aaron asked, before he could stop himself. Dr. Rez's expression softened slightly. "Lady Kaylee is physically stable. The conception is in its earliest stage and appears to be progressing normally, though there are unprecedented elements." "Dr. Rez," Pharaoh interjected, "before any examination takes place, we need assurances about the purpose and what will be done with the information." The doctor inclined her head. "A reasonable concern. Ambassador, I can tell you that I serve science and medicine first, house politics second. My primary concern is Lady Kaylee's health and the viability of the conception." "And what of Lady Argola's wishes?" Aaron asked. A flicker of something, disapproval, perhaps, crossed Dr. Rez's features. "The matriarch's priorities are complex. But medical ethics require me to prioritize my patient's well-being and choices." After a moment's consideration, Aaron nodded. "I'll consent to the examination." The procedure was brief, but thorough. Dr. Rez used a handheld scanner that hummed softly as she passed it over Aaron's body, pausing longest over his chest and head. "Fascinating," she murmured several times, her eyes on the readout. When she finished, she sat across from Aaron, her expression thoughtful. "Your genetic structure is remarkably compatible with Etheran physiology, especially for a species we've had such limited biological exchange with." "What does that mean for the conception?" Aaron asked. "It means that, contrary to what many in House Maris fear, this child could be viable, healthy, even." She tilted her head, studying him. "May I ask a personal question? Cultural attaché? Under the circumstances, I think we're beyond formalities. Your genetic profile shows markers that aren't typical for humans. Have you undergone any genetic modification?" Aaron nodded slowly. "Standard diplomatic corps adaptations, environmental tolerance enhancements, radiation resistance, extended cellular regeneration. Nothing combat-oriented." "Ah," Dr. Rez said, as if confirming a hypothesis. "Those modifications may explain the unusual compatibility." She stood, gathering her equipment. "I must return to House Maris with these findings." "Dr. Rez," Aaron called as she turned to leave, "please tell Lady Kaylee. Tell her I never intended this, and that whatever she decides, I will respect her choice." The doctor regarded him with an inscrutable expression. "I will convey your message." She paused at the door. "And cultural attaché. There are forces at work here beyond simple biology. Be prepared." After she left, Pharaoh looked at Aaron with concern. "What do you think she meant by that?" Aaron shook his head. "I don't know, but I have a feeling we're only seeing the surface of House Maris politics." That night, Aaron dreamed of silver eyes and fractured crystal, of a child with violet skin and his mother's smile. He woke to an urgent message summoning him to the embassy's secure communication room. "It's Lady Kaylee," Pharaoh informed him when he arrived. "She's requested a private channel." The screen flickered to life, revealing Kaylee's face. She looked pale but composed, though Aaron noted dark shadows beneath her eyes. "Cultural attaché," she greeted him formally. "Lady Kaylee," he responded, unsure of protocol in this unprecedented situation. How are you? A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Physically, I am well. Politically, I am in an extremely precarious position. She glanced over her shoulder before continuing. I have little time. My mother has convened the House Council to discuss the situation. There are those who demand immediate termination of the conception and severe diplomatic consequences. Aaron's heart sank. I understand, if that's your wish. It is not. Kaylee's voice was suddenly fierce. This is my body and my choice. The conception may have been accidental, but I will not allow others to dictate what happens next. Surprised, Aaron could only nod. I need to know, Kaylee continued, her voice lower, where you stand in this matter. Aaron considered his words carefully. I never intended for this to happen, and I regret that you were placed in this position without consent. But I won't pretend I have no responsibility. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. And if you choose to proceed with the pregnancy, I'll acknowledge and provide for the child in whatever way is appropriate. Kaylee studied him for a long moment. You are. Not what I expected. Aaron Cade. Nor you, Lady Kaylee. My mother has requested your presence at a private audience tomorrow. She will undoubtedly attempt to manipulate you. Be prepared. Her expression softened slightly. And Aaron? Thank you for your words. They matter. The screen went dark before he could respond. Well, Pharaoh said from behind him, that complicates things. How so? If Lady Kaylee chooses to keep this child against her mother's wishes, we're looking at a major house schism with humanity caught in the middle. Pharaoh sighed. Get some rest. Cade, tomorrow you face the matriarch. Lady Argala's private reception chamber was a stark contrast to the grand hall where the unity ceremony had taken place. Where that space had been open and luminous, this room was intimate and shadowed, lit only by glowing crystal orbs that cast long shadows across the ancient stone walls. Aaron was escorted in by silent guards who departed immediately, leaving him alone with the matriarch. Lady Argala sat in a high-backed chair that resembled a throne, her formal robes replaced by simpler but no less imposing attire. Cultural attaché, she acknowledged, not rising. Approach. Aaron moved forward, stopping at what he hoped was a respectful distance. Lady Argala, you have created quite a situation, she said, her voice deceptively soft. Centuries of careful bloodline maintenance, threatened by one dance. I assure you I had no intention. Intentions are irrelevant, she cut him off. Results are what matter. And the result is that my daughter, heir to House Maris, carries a half-human child. Aaron remained silent, sensing that interruption would only antagonize her further. Dr. Rez informs me that the conception is viable, Argala continued, watching him closely. That your genetic modifications make you unusually compatible with Ethyran physiology. So I'm told. Do you know how rare that is? Something shifted in her tone. True viability between species occurs perhaps once in 1,000 years. Aaron frowned. I don't understand the significance. Argala rose and walked to a wall covered in intricate carvings. A family tree, Aaron realized, tracing back countless generations. House Maris has ruled Ethyra Prime for 15 millennia, she said, tracing the carvings with long fingers. We have maintained our position through strategic marriages, alliances, and when necessary, genetic acquisitions. Genetic acquisitions? Argala turned to face him. When a bloodline demonstrates particular strengths or abilities, House Maris has historically, incorporated those traits. Understanding dawned. "You're not angry about the pregnancy," Aaron said slowly. "You're interested in the genetic potential." A thin smile spread across Argala's face. "Perceptive. Yes. Cultural attaché. Your genetic structure presents opportunities." "For what exactly?" "Diplomatic relations between Ethira and Earth have been strained for generations. A child of both worlds could be a powerful symbol. But more importantly, the traits your modifications offer, environmental adaptability, cellular regeneration, these would be valuable additions to the House Maris lineage." Aaron felt a chill. "What are you suggesting?" "A bargain." Argala returned to her seat. "I will support this pregnancy and grant you formal recognition as the child's progenitor. In exchange, you will provide genetic material for future Maris succession planning." "You want my DNA?" Aaron said flatly. "In a controlled, sanctioned manner, yes. Your diplomatic corps enhancements are particularly intriguing." "And if I refuse?" Argala's expression hardened. "Then I invoke House law to terminate the pregnancy on grounds of genetic contamination, and you face charges of biological assault against the Maris heir." Aaron fought to keep his expression neutral despite his shock. "I'd like to consult with Ambassador Pharaoh before responding." "Of course," Argala agreed smoothly. "You have until sunrise tomorrow. Think carefully. Cultural attaché, your future and that of your child depends on your decision." As guards appeared to escort him out, Aaron caught sight of a shadow moving behind a partially open door, a glimpse of silver-white hair. Kaylee had been listening. Back at the embassy, Pharaoh was furious. "She's blackmailing you for your genetic material," she fumed, pacing the secure conference room. "This violates at least 7 interplanetary treaties." "But she has leverage," Aaron pointed out. "Under Ethyran law, she could terminate the pregnancy." "But Lady Kaylee doesn't want that," Pharaoh countered. "And ultimately, it's her body." "In theory, yes. But Ethyran law gives the House matriarch significant authority over reproduction, especially for the direct line of succession." Aaron ran a hand over his face. "I can't let Kaylee face this alone." "You barely know her," Pharaoh said gently. "I know enough," Aaron replied. "I saw her face when she told me it was her choice. I can't be responsible for taking that choice away from her." A soft chime interrupted them. An embassy aide entered, looking nervous. "Sir, there's an Ethyran at the service entrance requesting to see you privately. She says she's Lady Kaylee's sister." Aaron and Pharaoh exchanged surprised glances. "Did she identify herself?" Pharaoh asked. "Yes, Ambassador. She says her name is Lura Sire." Lura proved to be younger than Kaylee, her violet skin a shade brighter, her manner less formal. She wore a hooded cloak that concealed her distinctive silver-white hair and kept glancing over her shoulder as the aide led her to a private meeting room. "I shouldn't be here," she said without preamble when Aaron entered. "If my mother knew." "Your secret is safe with us," Aaron assured her. "What can I do for you, Lady Lura?" "It's what I can do for you," she corrected. "And for my sister." She reached into her cloak and withdrew a small crystalline device. "This is a secure communication link. It will allow you to speak with Kaylee without the house surveillance systems detecting it." Aaron accepted the device, turning it over in his hands. "Why are you helping us?" Lura's expression softened. "Because I love my sister, and because I've watched her sacrifice her own happiness for House Maris her entire life." She leaned forward. "Our mother told you half-truths today." "Yes. House Maris has always sought genetic advantages, but never without consent, and never through coercion." "What is Lady Argala really after?" "Power, as always." Lura's voice held bitterness. A human Ethyran child would indeed be a powerful symbol. But Mother wants to control that symbol completely. She would use your child as a political pawn, raised to serve house interests above all else. And what does Kaylee want? Lura smiled sadly. That's for her to tell you. Use the device when you're alone. It's keyed to your genetic signature now. It will only work for you. After Lura departed, Aaron returned to his quarters and activated the device. It glowed softly, projecting a small holographic interface. Moments later, Kaylee's face appeared, startlingly lifelike despite the miniature scale. "Aaron," she said, relief evident in her voice. "Lura succeeded." "She did? Are you safe?" "For now. I'm officially in seclusion for meditation and reflection." A wry smile crossed her face. "A convenient tradition that gives me some privacy." "I met with your mother," Aaron began. "I know. I heard everything." Kaylee's expression hardened. "She has no right to demand your genetic material, nor to threaten this pregnancy." "What do you want, Kaylee?" Aaron asked directly. "Beyond the politics and traditions, what do you truly want?" She was silent for a long moment. "I want freedom," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "All my life, I've been the perfect heir, dutiful, traditional, unquestioning. This pregnancy, unexpected as it is, has shown me how little control I actually have." "And the child?" Her hand moved unconsciously to her abdomen. "I want this child, not as a symbol or a political tool, but as my child. Our child." She looked up, her silver eyes intense. "But I need to know if you stand with me in this. Truly stand with me. Not just out of duty or guilt." Aaron considered his words carefully. "I barely know you. Kaylee, under normal circumstances, we would be taking time to learn about each other, to build understanding. But these aren't normal circumstances." He took a deep breath. "What I do know is that I respect your courage and your conviction. I admire your strength. And I want to know you better. The real you. Not just the heir to House Maris." A soft smile transformed Kaylee's face, making her look younger, more vulnerable. "Then we understand each other." "What happens next?" Aaron asked. "Tomorrow, my mother convenes a tribunal in the Hall of Ancestors. She believes she has the votes to force her will." Kaylee's expression became determined. "But she has underestimated me. And you. What can I do?" "Come to the tribunal prepared to claim your rights as progenitor under Ethyran law. I'll handle the rest." She glanced over her shoulder. "I must go. Use this device only in emergency now. They'll be watching for unusual transmissions." Before the connection ended, Aaron said, "Kaylee, be careful." She nodded once, and then was gone. The next morning, Ambassador Pharaoh accompanied Aaron to the House Maris ancestral complex. They were led through labyrinthine corridors to an ancient chamber hewn from the living rock of Ethyra Prime itself. The Hall of Ancestors was unlike anything Aaron had seen before. The walls were embedded with thousands of crystal memory shards, each containing the consciousness imprint of a deceased house member. They glowed faintly, creating an eerie, shifting light throughout the vast space. At the center stood a raised circular platform similar to the one where the Unity Dance had taken place, but larger and clearly more ancient. Around it, tiered seating held dozens of Ethyran nobles and officials, their expressions ranging from curious to openly hostile. Lady Argala occupied an ornate chair on a dais overlooking the platform. Beside her sat Dr. Rez and several other officials Aaron didn't recognize. Conspicuously absent was Kaylee herself. "Where is Lady Kaylee?" Ambassador Pharaoh demanded, as they were led to designated positions near the platform. "The heir will join us shortly," an official responded. "She completes her ritual purification." Pharaoh leaned close to Iran. "This is a power play. Argala wants to present her case before Kaylee arrives." Sure enough, Lady Argala rose and addressed the assembly. "Esteemed House members, officials, and witnesses, we convene this tribunal to address a grave matter: the unauthorized conception created during the unity ceremony between Lady Kaylee's sire and cultural attaché Aaron Cade of Earth." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. "House law is clear," Argala continued. "Cross-species conception without council authorization is prohibited under the bloodline purity statutes established in the 9th millennium." A holographic display appeared above the central platform, showing recordings of the unity ceremony. Aaron watched himself and Kaylee performing the ritual dance, saw the moment when his hand brushed hers, when the console flashed red. "The evidence is incontrovertible," Argala declared. "The question before us is not whether a violation occurred, but how to remedy it." Ambassador Pharaoh rose. "If I may address the tribunal?" After a moment's hesitation, Argala nodded. "The conception was clearly accidental," Pharaoh stated firmly. Cultural attaché Cade had no knowledge of the injector's capabilities, nor was he briefed on its purpose. Furthermore, under interplanetary law, both parties must give informed consent for genetic exchange. This standard was not met. "Etherin law takes precedence in house matters," countered an elderly official. "Then let us address Etherin law directly," came a clear voice from the entrance. All heads turned as Kaylee entered the hall. She wore formal robes of silver and deep purple, her hair elaborately styled with crystalline ornaments that caught the light. She moved with deliberate grace to the central platform. "Mother," she acknowledged Argala with a slight bow. "Honored members of House Maris, I come before you not only as heir, but as life-bearer." The term sent a ripple of reaction through the assembly. "Lady Kaylee," Argala said, her voice tight, "this tribunal was convened to determine the disposition of an unauthorized conception. Your status remains heir, not life-bearer." "I carry life within me," Kaylee responded, her voice ringing through the hall. "By the ancient laws of Ethera, that grants me the title and rights of life-bearer, regardless of circumstance." Aaron saw Argala's expression flicker with something like alarm. "Cultural attaché," Kaylee turned to him, "please join me on the platform." Ignoring the murmurs from the assembly, Aaron stepped onto the platform beside Kaylee. Up close, he could see the strain behind her composed facade, the slight tremor in her hands. "Do you know what you're doing?" he whispered. "Trust me," she replied softly, before addressing the tribunal again. "I have consulted the memory shards of our ancestors and reviewed the ancient laws. Before any decision regarding this conception can be made, the progenitor must be given opportunity to claim or disclaim his role." Lady Argala leaned forward. "Daughter, the laws you invoke are ceremonial, not binding." "Are they?" Kaylee challenged. "Let us consult the first matriarch." Before Argala could object, Kaylee placed her hand on a crystal embedded in the platform. It flared brilliantly, and a holographic figure materialized above them, an Etherin woman in ancient garb, her expression stern but wise. The memory imprint of matriarch Elissa Sire, founder of House Maris. Kaylee announced, "First matriarch, we seek your guidance on the law of life-bearers." The holographic figure spoke, her voice resonating with authority, despite the millennia that had passed since her death. "The life-bearer's choice is inviolable. When life is conceived, the bearer alone determines its fate, provided the progenitor acknowledges or disclaims responsibility. Kaylee turned to Aaron, her silver eyes intense. Cultural attaché, Aaron Cade, before this assembly, and in the presence of our ancestors, do you acknowledge your role as progenitor of the life I now carry? Aaron felt the weight of every eye in the hall upon him. He understood now what Kaylee was doing, invoking ancient law that even her mother couldn't easily dismiss. I do, he said clearly. I acknowledge my role as progenitor and accept all responsibilities that entails. Then as life-bearer, I declare my intention to nurture this life, Kaylee announced, and I invoke the life-bearer's vow. Gasps echoed through the hall. Lady Argala rose to her feet. Kaylee, you cannot. I can, and I do, Kaylee interrupted, her voice unwavering. The life-bearer's vow has not been invoked in 8 centuries, but it remains valid law. What is the life-bearer's vow? Aaron whispered. An ancient rite that binds a life-bearer to her chosen consort, Kaylee explained softly. It supersedes house authority in matters of the conception. Before Aaron could respond, a strange sensation washed over him, a pulse of energy emanating from Kaylee. The assembled nobles reacted with shock, many rising to their feet. The bonding pulse. Dr. Rez's voice carried from the dais. The implant has recognized the progenitor. What's happening? Aaron asked, alarmed. The gestational chamber contains a biological marker, Kaylee explained, swaying slightly. It has recognized your DNA and formed a link. Lady Argala descended from the dais, her expression thunderous. Enough of this theatricality. Daughter, you go too far. I go exactly far enough, Kaylee replied. Turning to face the assembly, she raised her voice. Before the ancestors of House Maris, and by the authority vested in me as life-bearer, I declare Aaron Cade my chosen consort. Let any who would challenge this step forward now. The hall fell into stunned silence. Even Argala seemed momentarily at a loss. It was Dr. Rez who broke the tension, stepping forward from the dais. The medical scans confirm compatibility. The bonding pulse has established a biological link. Under Athyran medical law, separation now would endanger both life-bearer and conception. Argala's eyes narrowed. This tribunal will recess while the House Council deliberates these developments. She fixed Kaylee with a cold stare. You have created a crisis. Daughter, I have claimed my right, Kaylee corrected, as you taught me a true Maris heir should. As the assembly began to disperse in a buzz of excited conversation, Ambassador Pharaoh hurried to the platform. What just happened? She demanded. Kaylee inclined her head. Ambassador, I have claimed cultural attaché Cade as my consort under ancient Etherin law. The life-bearer's vow creates a bond that cannot be broken without severe consequences. You've essentially married my cultural attaché without warning or diplomatic clearance, Pharaoh said, though Aaron noted she seemed more impressed than angry. I have created a legal shield around this conception, Kaylee corrected. Marriage is a human concept with different implications. And the bonding pulse? Aaron asked, still feeling a strange resonance in his chest. The gestational chamber creates a biological link with the progenitor, Dr. Rez explained, joining them. It ensures genetic stability during development. Traditionally, it also served to verify paternity in a less scientific age. Is it dangerous? Pharaoh asked. Not at all, Rez assured them. But it does create certain dependencies. The life-bearer and progenitor should remain in proximity during critical developmental stages. Meaning I'm essentially tethered to Lady Kaylee, Aaron summarized. For the duration of the gestation, yes, Rez confirmed. Though the range is quite generous, planetary proximity is sufficient. As Dr. Rez moved away to consult with other officials, Aaron turned to Kaylee. "You might have warned me about this part." A flash of uncertainty crossed her face. "Would you have agreed if you'd known?" Aaron considered the question seriously. "Yes," he finally said. "But I would have appreciated knowing what I was agreeing to." "I apologize for the deception," Kaylee said softly. "There wasn't time to explain fully, and I couldn't risk my mother intercepting our communications." Ambassador Farrow cleared her throat. "While this is all very dramatic, we now have a diplomatic situation on our hands. Lady Kaylee, what happens next?" "The House Council will deliberate, but they cannot overturn the life-bearer's vow without unanimous consent, which they won't get. Dr. Rez and several other progressive council members will support us." Kaylee's expression hardened. "My mother, however, will not accept defeat easily." "What can we expect from her?" Aaron asked. "She will shift tactics," Kaylee predicted. "If she cannot prevent this union, she will attempt to control it, to use it for House advantage." "And is that not what you're doing as well?" Farrow asked pointedly. Kaylee looked at her with surprise, then gave a small, rueful smile. "Perhaps. I am my mother's daughter. After all." Her gaze shifted to Aaron. "But my motivations extend beyond House politics." Before further discussion could occur, a House official approached. "Lady Kaylee, the Council requests your presence. Cultural attaché. You are to remain here until summoned." As Kaylee prepared to leave, Aaron caught her hand. "Be careful." She squeezed his hand briefly. "Always." The hours that followed were tense. Aaron and Ambassador Farrow were provided refreshments, but little information as they waited in an antechamber off the main hall. Occasionally, raised voices could be heard from the council chamber, though the words were indistinct. "This is unprecedented," Farrow said, nursing a cup of Etheran tea. "No human has ever been bound to an Etheran noble family before." "I'm not sure bound is the term I'd choose," Aaron replied dryly. Farrow studied him. "You've handled this remarkably well. Cade, most diplomats would be having a meltdown by now." Aaron shrugged. "Adaptability is part of the job description, isn't it?" "Adaptability, yes. Becoming the consort to an alien noblewoman and father to a potential heir of one of the most powerful houses in the quadrant. That's a bit beyond standard diplomatic training." Before Aaron could respond, the door opened to admit Lura, Kaylee's younger sister. She looked around quickly before approaching them. "The council session has ended," she informed them in a low voice. "It did not go as my mother planned." "What happened?" Aaron asked. Kaylee outmaneuvered her. "The life-bearer's vow has been officially recognized, and the council has granted provisional approval for the cross-species conception to continue." Lura's expression was both worried and admiring. "But there's a condition." "Of course there is," Farrow muttered. "The child must be born on Ethera Prime and raised with knowledge of both cultures," Lura explained. "And Aaron must undergo formal integration into House Maris." "Integration?" Aaron frowned. "What does that entail?" "Nothing sinister," Lura assured him. "Primarily cultural education, ceremonial induction, and—" She hesitated. "A small genetic sampling for the house records." Farrow's eyes narrowed. "So Lady Argala gets her genetic material after all." "A single sample, taken with consent and with strict limitations on its use," Lura clarified. "Nothing like what my mother originally demanded." "And Kaylee, is she satisfied with this compromise?" Aaron asked. "She negotiated it," Lura said with a small smile. She knew exactly how far she could push before the conservative faction would revolt. The door opened again, and an official entered. "The council is ready." Please follow me. The council chamber was smaller than the Hall of Ancestors, but no less imposing. Ancient tapestries depicting Ethyran history covered the walls, and the councilors, 12 in total, sat in a semicircle on elevated seats. Lady Argala occupied the central position, with Kaylee standing before the council. As Aaron entered, he noted the tension in the room. Several councilors looked distinctly uncomfortable, while others seemed curious or even amused. Argala's face was a mask of controlled neutrality. Cultural Attaché Aaron Cade, Argala announced formally. The council has reviewed the circumstances of the conception and Lady Kaylee's invocation of the life-bearer's vow. Aaron moved to stand beside Kaylee, noting the subtle straightening of her posture as he approached. While the circumstances are unprecedented, Argala continued. The council acknowledges the validity of the ancient laws invoked. The conception will be permitted to continue, and your status as consort to the heir of House Maris is provisionally recognized, subject to certain conditions. The conditions were outlined formally, essentially what Lura had already explained, with additional details about the integration process Iran would undergo. Throughout the recitation, Aaron was aware of Kaylee's steady presence beside him, of the barely perceptible tension in her shoulders. When Argala finished, she fixed Aaron with a penetrating stare. Do you accept these terms? Cultural attaché? Aaron glanced at Ambassador Pharaoh, who gave a small nod. I accept, he stated clearly. Then it is settled. Argala rose. The formal bonding ceremony will take place in 7 days, before the full Ethyran Council. Until then, Lady Kaylee and Cultural Attaché Cade will observe traditional pre-bonding separation. As the counselors filed out, Argala approached Aaron and Kaylee. Up close, Aaron could see the strain in her face, the tightness around her eyes. You have won this round, daughter, she said quietly. But remember, what serves your personal desires may not serve House Maris. Perhaps House Maris needs to evolve. Mother, Kaylee replied evenly. As you always taught me, adaptation is survival. Something flickered in Argala's eyes. Respect, perhaps, or resignation. We shall see. She turned to Iran. Cultural attaché, do not mistake this outcome for weakness on my part. I have allowed this union because I see potential advantage in it. Disappoint those expectations at your peril. With that, she swept from the chamber, leaving Aaron and Kaylee alone save for Ambassador Pharaoh, who maintained a discreet distance. Your mother is formidable, Aaron remarked. You have no idea, Kaylee replied with a hint of weariness. This is merely a tactical retreat for her. She will regroup and find ways to turn this situation to house advantage. And you? Aaron asked. What do you want from this union, beyond protection for our child? Kaylee turned to face him fully, her silver eyes searching his. I want possibility, she said simply. For 15,000 years, House Maris has followed the same patterns, the same traditions. We have stagnated while pretending to evolve. Her hand moved unconsciously to her abdomen. This child represents something truly new, not just genetically, but culturally, politically. That's a lot of responsibility for one child, Aaron observed. A small smile touched Kaylee's lips. All Maris children bear responsibility, but this one will also have choice, something I was never given. She hesitated, then added more softly. And I hope, between us, we can ensure it also has love. The word hung between them, unexpected and profound. The pre-bonding separation begins at sunset, Kaylee continued, changing the subject. It's an ancient tradition meant for reflection and preparation. We won't be permitted to communicate directly until the ceremony. Is that going to be a problem with the bonding pulse? Aaron asked. No, planetary proximity is sufficient, as Dr. Rez said. She glanced toward Pharaoh. Your ambassador will receive details about the ceremony and your role in it. As she turned to leave, Aaron caught her hand. Kaylee, thank you for choosing me as part of this. She looked surprised, then genuinely touched. You are not what I expected. Aaron Cade, she said, echoing her words from their earlier conversation. I find myself grateful for the malfunction that brought us together. The 7 days of separation passed in a blur of preparation. Aaron divided his time between briefings with Ambassador Pharaoh on Etherin bonding protocols and sessions with a cultural advisor assigned by House Maris. He learned the complex gestures and phrases he would need for the ceremony, the significance of various Etherin symbols, and the history of House Maris itself. The bonding ceremony predates even the founding of House Maris. His advisor, an elderly Ethyran named Valen, explained. It comes from the time when Ethyrans were still divided into nomadic clans. The ritual symbolizes not just the union of individuals, but the merging of bloodlines and the continuation of life. And is it always so political? Aaron asked. Valen chuckled. Always, though rarely quite so dramatically as in your case. He regarded Aaron with curious eyes. You are remarkably calm for someone whose life has been so suddenly transformed. Aaron considered this. I joined the diplomatic corps because I wanted to experience different cultures, to build bridges between worlds. This isn't exactly what I had in mind, but the principle is the same. And Lady Kaylee, what are your feelings toward her? It was a surprisingly direct question from an Ethyran. I respect her, Aaron said carefully. I admire her courage and her conviction. As for deeper feelings, we barely know each other. But I'm open to the possibility. Valen nodded approvingly. A wise approach. Many successful Ethyran unions begin with respect rather than passion. The latter may come with time. On the morning of the ceremony, Aaron was provided with formal attire that blended human and Ethyran elements, a tailored suit in deep blue with crystalline embroidery along the collar and cuffs. Ambassador Pharaoh herself helped him prepare. Earth's diplomatic corps has sent a formal acknowledgement of your new status, she informed him. You'll retain your position as cultural attaché, with expanded responsibilities as consort to the Maris heir. That's generous, Aaron said, surprised. Pharaoh smiled wryly. They're scrambling to take advantage of this unexpected connection to House Maris. Your accidental pregnancy may end up being the most significant diplomatic breakthrough in human-Ethyran relations in a century. No pressure, Aaron muttered. Just be yourself, Pharaoh advised. That seems to have worked well so far. The ceremony took place in the Grand Council Chamber of Ethera Prime, a vast circular hall with a domed ceiling that revealed the twin suns and 3 moons of the Ethyran system. Representatives from all major houses were in attendance, along with the full Etheran Council and a small delegation from Earth. Aaron entered from the western side as tradition dictated, walking slowly down a crystalline path that shimmered with each step. From the eastern entrance came Kaylee, and Aaron's breath caught at the sight of her. She wore robes of shifting silver and violet that seemed to flow like liquid around her tall form. Her silver-white hair was adorned with crystalline ornaments that caught the light from above, creating a halo effect. But it was her expression that struck him most, serene, but with an undercurrent of joy that he hadn't seen before. They met at the center of the chamber, where a raised circular platform bore the ancient symbols of Etheran union. Lady Argala stood on a dais overlooking the platform, her role as matriarch requiring her to officiate despite her initial opposition. People of Ethera, honored guests from Earth, she began, her voice carrying effortlessly through the vast space. We gather to witness the union of bloodlines, the creation of new bonds, the affirmation of life. The ritual proceeded with ancient words and gestures. Aaron and Kaylee exchanged vows in both Etheran and English. Their hands joined over a crystal that pulsed with light in rhythm with their heartbeats. When the time came for the final binding, Kaylee guided Aaron's hand to rest over her abdomen. The moment his palm made contact, the bonding pulse surged between them, stronger than before, almost visible as a shimmer in the air. By the laws of Ethera Prime and the traditions of House Maris, Argala proclaimed, this union is recognized and sanctified. What has been joined in blood and choice, let no force sunder. The assembly erupted in formal applause, restrained but sincere. As Aaron and Kaylee turned to face the gathered witnesses, he was struck by the historic nature of the moment. Human and Etheran, joined in a bond that transcended both cultures. He glanced at Kaylee and found her already looking at him, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. In that moment, despite the politics and the unexpected nature of their union, Aaron felt something shift between them, something like the beginning of understanding, of possibility. The reception that followed was elaborate, with representatives from various houses coming forward to offer formal acknowledgments. Aaron noted the varying degrees of sincerity. Some clearly approved of the union, seeing it as progressive, while others barely concealed their disapproval. House Terran offers blessings on your union, declared a tall Etheran with unusually dark violet skin. May it strengthen both our peoples. House Valix acknowledges the union, said another, more coolly. May it serve Ethira's interests. Throughout it all, Kaylee remained poised, her responses perfectly calibrated to each house's position. Aaron followed her lead, gradually recognizing the subtle political currents at play. When Lady Argala approached them toward the end of the reception, a hush fell over the nearby guests. Daughter, she acknowledged Kaylee with a formal bow. Consort, she added, addressing Aaron with the same gesture. House Maris recognizes this day as significant in our lineage. The path forward will not be easy, but the house endures through adaptation. It was as close to approval as they were likely to get. Aaron realized Kaylee seemed to think the same, for she inclined her head respectfully. Thank you, Mother. Your wisdom guides us. After Argala moved away, Lura approached, her expression far warmer. Sister, she embraced Kaylee affectionately. Aaron, she added, including him in the gesture. You've caused quite the stir in the grand houses. Everyone's talking about the human who captured the Maris heir's hand. Hardly captured, Aaron demurred. Don't be modest, Lura teased. You've accomplished what a dozen Etheran nobles failed to do. You got my sister to break protocol. Kaylee actually blushed, her pale violet skin darkening slightly. Lura, please. The council has adjourned to deliberate the new legal precedent you've established. Lura continued, more seriously. Cross-species unions may now be formally recognized under Etheran law. You've changed our society, whether you intended to or not. The significance of this wasn't lost on Aaron. What had begun as an accident was now reshaping interplanetary relations. Later, as the reception wound down, Aaron and Kaylee were escorted to their new quarters, a suite in the east wing of the House Maris complex that had been prepared for them. It was spacious and elegant, blending Etheran design with touches that Aaron recognized as concessions to human comfort. As the attendants withdrew, leaving them alone for the first time since the ceremony, a moment of awkwardness descended. So, Aaron said, breaking the silence, married, or bonded, or whatever the correct term is. Kaylee smiled slightly. Bonded is appropriate, though the concept encompasses aspects of what humans would consider both marriage and biological partnership. And now we live together. Yes, though these quarters are designed with privacy in mind. You have your own sleeping chamber, connected to the main living area. She hesitated. I understand that this arrangement is not what either of us would have chosen under normal circumstances. Aaron moved to the wide window that overlooked the crystalline spires of the city. Nothing about this has been normal. He turned to face her. But I meant what I said in the ceremony. Kaylee, I will honor this bond, and I will be there for our child. She joined him at the window, close enough that he could sense the subtle warmth of her presence. And for me? She asked softly. The question surprised him. Yes, he said, realizing the truth of it as he spoke. For you as well. Whatever that means, as we figure this out together. Kaylee's hand found his, her long fingers intertwining with his own. Then perhaps we should begin by getting to know each other properly, without politics, or ceremony, or crisis. I'd like that. As the twin suns of Ethera set beyond the crystalline towers, casting rainbow light across the city, Aaron felt the bonding pulse between them. Steady, reassuring, a physical manifestation of the connection they now shared. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was a beginning. 3 months passed, bringing changes both subtle and profound. Aaron settled into his dual role as cultural attaché and consort to the Maris heir, finding unexpected satisfaction in bridging the two worlds. His expanded diplomatic duties gave him unique insights into Ethyran society, while his position in House Maris opened doors that had been closed to humans for generations. Kaylee's pregnancy progressed normally, though Dr. Rez monitored it closely given its unprecedented nature. The genetic compatibility that had made the conception possible continued to ensure a healthy development, though there were occasional surprises. The fetal brain structure shows fascinating integration of both human and Ethyran patterns. Dr. Rez explained during one examination, her eyes bright with scientific excitement. And the gestational chamber has adapted remarkably to support the hybrid physiology. But everything is healthy, Kaylee asked, practical as always. Perfectly so, Rez assured her. In fact, certain indicators suggest enhanced cellular regeneration, likely a benefit from Iran's genetic modifications. The political landscape had shifted as well. As Lura had predicted, the Union established a new legal precedent, and the Ethyran Council had formalized protocols for cross-species relationships. Several other mixed couples had come forward, previously living in secrecy, now able to seek official recognition. Lady Argala, true to her nature, had adapted her strategy. Having failed to prevent the union, she now positioned herself as its architect, claiming foresight in fostering closer human-Etheran relations through her heir's bond. Few were fooled, but many played along for political convenience. The relationship between Aaron and Kaylee evolved gradually, built on daily interactions and shared experiences rather than dramatic gestures. They developed routines, morning walks through the palace gardens, evening meals in their private quarters, where they exchanged stories of their respective cultures, late-night conversations about everything from philosophy to favorite foods. I still don't understand how you can enjoy Rika fruit, Aaron remarked one evening, as Kaylee contentedly consumed the notoriously bitter Etheran delicacy. It tastes like a combination of unripe persimmon and metal. Says the man who voluntarily eats olives, Kaylee countered with a smile. Her smiles came more frequently now. Aaron had noticed. The rigid formality she had first presented to the world had softened, revealing a wry humor and quick intellect that he found increasingly appealing. Fair point, he conceded. Though I maintain that olives with good cheese is one of humanity's finest culinary achievements. Perhaps our child will develop a palate for both, Kaylee mused, her hand resting on her abdomen, which had just begun to show the slight swell of pregnancy. Poor kid, Aaron laughed. Doomed to a lifetime of weird food preferences? Kaylee's expression grew thoughtful. What do you think they will be like, our child? Aaron considered the question seriously. I think they'll be remarkable, he said finally. Not because of genetics or politics, but because they'll have the freedom to be themselves in a way that crosses boundaries. Human and Etherean, science and tradition, duty and choice. Kaylee reached across the table and took his hand. You continue to surprise me. Aaron Cade. Good, he replied, squeezing her fingers gently. I'd hate to become predictable. The bonding pulse between them had strengthened over time, becoming something they were both attuned to almost subconsciously. Dr. Rez had explained that this was normal for Etherean pairs, though the human-Etherean connection added unique qualities to the bond. The pulse serves as a biological monitor during pregnancy, she'd told them. But it also facilitates emotional attunement between bonded pairs. The strength of your connection suggests exceptional compatibility. That compatibility manifested in unexpected ways. Aaron found he could sometimes sense Kaylee's emotional state, even when they were physically separated, particularly during moments of stress or strong feeling. She reported similar experiences, awareness of his presence and well-being that transcended normal perception. Despite these developments, they maintained separate sleeping quarters, neither pushing for a more intimate relationship than the other was ready for. The pregnancy had resulted from technology, not choice, and both were careful to respect boundaries as they navigated their unusual situation. One evening, Aaron returned to their quarters later than usual, having been detained by a complex diplomatic negotiation. He found Kaylee in the garden terrace that adjoined their living space, sitting beside a small fountain that burbled softly in the twilight. You missed dinner, she observed as he joined her. I'm sorry. The Torellian trade delegation was particularly demanding today. He sat beside her on the stone bench, noticing the tension in her posture. Is everything all right? My mother summoned me this afternoon, Kaylee said after a moment. The council is preparing for the formal announcement of the pregnancy to the general population. It will take place next week. I thought we'd agreed to wait another month. Mother believes further delay would spark unnecessary speculation. And she's not wrong, Kaylee sighed. The announcement will trigger the formal succession protocols. As life bearer, I will be required to name an interim heir in case of complications. Aaron understood the implications immediately. And your mother expects you to name her. It would be traditional, Kaylee acknowledged, but I've decided to name Lura instead. Your mother won't take that well. A small, determined smile curved Kaylee's lips. No, she won't. But it's my right as life-bearer to choose. And Lura represents the future of House Maris better than my mother's backward-looking policies. Aaron studied her in the fading light. You're changing things, aren't you? Using this situation to reshape House Maris from within? Perhaps, Kaylee admitted. Or perhaps I'm simply tired of traditions that serve no purpose beyond their own perpetuation. She turned to face him fully. Does that trouble you? Being part of this political calculation? Aaron considered the question honestly. No, he said finally. Because I don't think it's just political for you. I think you genuinely want change. For yourself. For our child. For Ethera. And for us, Kaylee added softly. The words hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning. Aaron felt the bonding pulse quicken slightly, Kaylee, he began, but she shook her head. I know we came to this union through strange circumstance, she said, and I know neither of us would have chosen this path, but I find myself grateful for where it has led us. Her silver eyes met his. These past months, getting to know you, building this connection, it's been unexpected, but valuable. Erin reached out, tucking a strand of silver-white hair behind her ear in a gesture that had become familiar between them. Very valuable, he agreed. The moment was interrupted by a soft chime, a communication alert. Kaylee sighed and activated the small, crystalline device on her wrist. It's Lura, she said. She's requesting to visit. She says it's important. Lura arrived minutes later, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by obvious concern. Mother is planning something, she announced without preamble as she entered their quarters. She's been in closed meetings with representatives from 3 of the most conservative houses, and I overheard mention of genetic integrity and succession safeguards. Kaylee frowned. That could mean many things. It could, Lura agreed. But coupled with her sudden insistence on the pregnancy announcement and the fact that she's ordered additional security protocols for the medical center, I'm worried, sister. You think she might try to interfere with the pregnancy? Erin asked, alarmed. Not directly, Lura said. Even Mother wouldn't violate the life-bearer's protection so blatantly, but she might be laying groundwork to challenge the child's legitimacy after birth, or to impose restrictions on its role in succession. Kaylee's hand moved protectively to her abdomen. She would need council approval for any such measures, which is why she's meeting with the conservative houses, Lura pointed out, building support. Erin exchanged a look with Kaylee. We need more information. I agree, Kaylee said. Lura, can you find out which counselor she's approached specifically? I'll try. But be careful. Both of you. Mother has always played the long game, and she's never accepted defeat gracefully. After Lura departed, Erin and Kaylee discussed potential strategies. The political maneuvering that had become part of their daily reality now took on greater urgency with their child's future at stake. We should speak with Dr. Rez, Kaylee decided. She sits on the Medical Ethics Council and has influence with the progressive faction. And I'll talk to Ambassador Farrow, Erin added. If your mother is trying to undermine our child's legitimacy, it becomes a diplomatic issue as well as a house matter. They worked late into the night, sending secure messages and reviewing legal precedents. At some point, exhaustion overtook them, and they fell asleep together on the couch in their living area. Kaylee's head resting on Aaron's shoulder, his arm wrapped protectively around her. It was the first night they had spent together, unplanned but somehow right. When Aaron woke to find Kaylee still nestled against him, the early morning light playing across her violet features, he felt a surge of emotion that went beyond duty or circumstance. Morning, Kaylee murmured, her silver eyes blinking open. Morning, he replied softly. Sleep well? Better than I expected, given the circumstances. She straightened, stretching gracefully. We have much to do today. But before she could rise, Erin caught her hand. Kaylee, whatever your mother is planning, we'll face it together. I promise you that. She looked at him for a long moment, then leaned forward and kissed him. Their first kiss. Gentle but definitive. Together. She agreed. The days leading up to the formal pregnancy announcement were tense. Through Lura's intelligence and their own investigations, Erin and Kaylee pieced together Lady Argala's likely strategy. She wasn't seeking to challenge the pregnancy itself. That would be politically untenable given the life-bearer's vow and the bonding pulse. Instead, she was working to establish new protocols for genetically diverse heirs, which would place additional requirements and restrictions on their child's path to succession. It's clever, Kaylee acknowledged grudgingly as they reviewed the information in their quarters. She's framing it as protection for House Maris rather than discrimination against our child. Can she succeed? Aaron asked. Possibly. The conservative houses fear change, and our union represents significant change indeed. Kaylee paced the room, her pregnancy now visible in the gentle curve of her body beneath her robes. But we have advantages too. Public sentiment has been largely positive, especially among younger Ethyrans, and several key counselors have already expressed support for full recognition of our child's rights. Their counteroffensive took shape gradually. Dr. Rez provided medical testimony about the child's healthy development and the successful integration of human and Ethyran genetic markers. Ambassador Farrow leveraged diplomatic channels to emphasize Earth's interest in equitable treatment for the first human Etheran heir. And Lura worked behind the scenes, rallying support among the younger generation of House leaders. The day of the announcement arrived clear and bright, the twin sons of Ethera Prime casting dual shadows across the Grand Plaza, where the ceremony would take place. Thousands of Ethyrans gathered to witness the historic moment, with millions more watching via holographic transmission throughout the system. The formal procession began with representatives of each great house, followed by the Etheran Council. Lady Argala led the Maris contingent, resplendent in ceremonial robes that emphasized her status as matriarch. Kaylee and Iran followed, their attire complementary, her robes a shimmering violet with blue accents that matched the deep blue of his formal suit with its violet embroidery. As they mounted the steps to the central platform, Aaron felt the weight of history upon them. The first publicly acknowledged human Ethyran child would change both societies irrevocably. Lady Argala addressed the assembly first, her voice carrying across the plaza with practiced authority. People of Ethera, honored guests, members of the great houses. Today we gather to announce a significant development in the lineage of House Maris. My daughter, Lady Kaylee Sire, heir to House Maris, and her consort, cultural attaché Iran Cade of Earth, are with child. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Though the news had been rumored, the official confirmation still caused excitement. This conception represents a new chapter in Etheran history, Argala continued. A union of bloodlines that will strengthen the bonds between our worlds. So far, her speech followed the agreed-upon text, but as she continued, Aaron noticed subtle deviations. Such a unique union naturally requires careful consideration of our traditions and succession laws, Argala said. To that end, the Council has been in deliberation regarding appropriate protocols to ensure the stability and continuity of House Maris leadership. Kaylee tensed beside him, recognizing the opening gambit in her mother's strategy. As matriarch, Argala had the right to speak first at such ceremonies, giving her the advantage of framing the discussion. The Council proposes a series of specialized requirements for cross-species heirs, Argala announced. These include enhanced education in Ethyran tradition, extended residency requirements on Ethera Prime, and genetic stability assessments at key developmental milestones. The requirements sounded reasonable on the surface, but Aaron and Kaylee had reviewed the actual proposal. The requirements would effectively place their child under direct council oversight, specifically a council that Argala largely controlled, and create numerous opportunities to disqualify them from succession on technicalities. When Argala concluded her remarks, it was Kaylee's turn to address the assembly. She stepped forward, the picture of Ethyran grace, though Aaron could sense her determination through their bond. Esteemed houses, honored council, citizens of Ethera Prime, she began, her voice clear and strong. Today we celebrate not just the continuation of House Maris, but the evolution of Etheran society itself. She placed a hand gently on her abdomen, drawing all eyes to the visible sign of her pregnancy. This child represents our future, a future where Ethera embraces the galaxy rather than standing apart from it. A future where our ancient traditions find new expression through connection rather than isolation. Murmurs of approval rose from sections of the crowd, particularly among the younger Etherans. As life-bearer, I invoke the ancient rite of declaration of intent. Kaylee continued, using a ceremonial phrase that few had expected. Before all witnesses, I declare that this child shall be raised with knowledge of both lineages, both cultures, both worlds, equally and without prejudice. The formal invocation carried significant weight under Etheran law. By using it in such a public forum, Kaylee was directly challenging her mother's attempt to place restrictions on their child's upbringing. Furthermore, Kaylee added, her voice gaining strength, I name my sister, Lady Lura Sire, as interim heir and guardian of succession, should any harm befall me during this life-bearing. A shocked silence fell over the assembly. The naming of an interim heir was expected, but the choice of Lura over Argala was a clear statement of Kaylee's intentions and allegiances. Lady Argala's face remained impressively composed, though Aaron noted the slight tightening of her jaw. She had been outmaneuvered in public, with thousands of witnesses. Now it was Aaron's turn to speak. As he stepped forward, he felt the subtle shift in the crowd's attention, curiosity about what the human consort would say at this historic moment. People of Ethera, he began, I stand before you as both a representative of Earth and as consort to Lady Kaylee Sire. Our union was unexpected, our child unplanned. But in these circumstances, we have discovered something profound, that the boundaries between our peoples are more permeable than we imagined. He paused, making eye contact with various members of the assembly. Earth and Ethera have maintained diplomatic relations for generations, but true understanding has eluded us. Perhaps it takes the most personal of connections to bridge such divides. This child will belong to both worlds, both cultures. And in that belonging, perhaps we all find a new path forward. He turned slightly toward Lady Argala, his tone respectful but firm. Tradition is valuable when it preserves wisdom, but dangerous when it preserves only itself. Our child will honor Etheran traditions, but will not be constrained by them. They will be free to forge their own path, as all children should. When he finished, there was a moment of silence. Then a wave of applause began, tentative at first. Then, building. It spread from the younger Etherans outward, encompassing more and more of the assembly, until even some of the conservative House representatives joined in. Lady Argala had no choice but to conclude the ceremony as tradition dictated, though her final words carried a subtle warning. May House Maris continue to thrive through adaptation and wisdom. The Council will convene to consider these declarations and establish appropriate protocols for this unprecedented situation. As the assembly dispersed, Dr. Rez approached them, her expression both concerned and impressed. A bold strategy, she murmured. The matriarch will not forgive this public challenge easily. We're counting on that, Kaylee replied quietly. My mother is most dangerous when she operates in shadows. By forcing the discussion into the open, we limit her options. Still, be vigilant, Dr. Rez cautioned, and come to the medical center tomorrow for your scheduled examination. I want to ensure the excitement of today hasn't caused any stress to the child. As they returned to their quarters, Escorted by Lura and a contingent of house guards loyal to Kaylee, Aaron sensed a mixture of triumph and tension through their bond. "Are you all right?" he asked once they were alone. Kaylee sank onto a couch, finally allowing her perfect posture to relax. "I've just publicly defied my mother and upended centuries of house protocol," she said with a wry smile. "I'm exhausted, exhilarated, and terrified in equal measure." Aaron sat beside her, taking her hand. "You were magnificent. As were you." She studied him thoughtfully. "You've changed since we met. Aaron Cade." "Have I?" "You've become more Etherin in some ways, more attuned to the nuances of our politics, and yet you've remained distinctly human in your directness." Her expression softened. "It's a compelling combination." "Well, I have an excellent teacher in all things Etherin," he replied, squeezing her hand. Kaylee leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "What happens now, do you think? Your mother regroups, the council deliberates, and we prepare for whatever comes next." He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "But right now, maybe we just rest." They sat together in comfortable silence as the light from Ethira's twin suns slowly faded, casting long shadows across their quarters. Whatever battles lay ahead, they would face them together. The next morning, they made their way to the medical center for Kaylee's scheduled examination. Dr. Rez was waiting for them, her medical assistant preparing the specialized equipment used to monitor the hybrid pregnancy. "How are you feeling today, Lady Kaylee?" Dr. Rez asked as she began the examination. "Well enough. Some fatigue, but that's to be expected, I suppose." "Indeed. The second trimester often brings increased energy, but your body is working extraordinarily hard to support this unique development." Dr. Rez activated a holographic display that showed detailed images of the developing child. "Everything continues to progress normally. The integration of human and Ethiran genetic structures remains stable." Aaron watched in fascination as the hologram rotated, showing different aspects of their child's development. Already, he could see features that suggested both human and Ethiran characteristics, the beginnings of Ethiran eye structure, but with what appeared to be a more human cranial formation. "Do you wish to know the child's sex?" Dr. Rez asked, looking between them. Kaylee and Aaron exchanged glances. They hadn't discussed this. "What do you think?" Kaylee asked him. "I'm happy either way," Aaron replied honestly. "Would knowing now be significant for house matters?" "Not particularly," Kaylee said. "The heir's position isn't gender-dependent in House Maris." After a moment's consideration, they decided to wait. Some surprises, they agreed, were worth preserving. As Dr. Rez concluded the examination, her assistant was called away to respond to an urgent message. When he returned, his expression was troubled. "Doctor, there's a situation. The matriarch has convened an emergency session of the Medical Ethics Council. They're requesting your immediate presence." Dr. Rez frowned. "What is the nature of the emergency?" "They didn't specify, but it concerns genetic protocols for cross-species conception." Kaylee sat up quickly. "My mother moves faster than anticipated." "I should attend this meeting," Dr. Rez said, her concern evident. "Lady Kaylee, Cultural Attaché Cade, I recommend discretion until we understand what the matriarch is planning." After they left the medical center, Kaylee and Aaron took a detour through the palace gardens, where they could speak without fear of surveillance. The gardens were one of the few places in the House Maris complex designed for true privacy, with sound-dampening crystal formations and bioelectric fields that disrupted most monitoring technology. "My mother is attempting to establish medical grounds for intervention," Kaylee said, as they walked among the exotic flora. If she can convince the Ethics Council that our child presents unknown medical risks, she could potentially mandate additional safeguards during development. Can she do that? Override the life-bearer's protection? Not directly, but she could create enough concern that the Council feels obligated to act for the greater good of House Maris. Kaylee's expression was grim. We need allies on that council besides Dr. Rez. Ambassador Farrow might have contacts among the Ethyran medical establishment, Aaron suggested. And what about Lura? Would she have influence with any counselors? Possibly. She's built relationships with several of the younger council members. Kaylee paused beside a fountain whose water flowed upward in defiance of gravity. We should also consider a more direct approach. Meaning? I could request a formal audience with the full council, matriarch to heir. Such sessions are traditionally private, with no recording permitted. It would give me an opportunity to address my mother's concerns directly, without the political theater. Aaron considered this. Would it be safe? For you and the child? The life-bearer is inviolable during formal council proceedings. It's one of our oldest laws. Kaylee's hand found his. But I won't go alone. As my consort, you have the right to accompany me. They spent the remainder of the day gathering information and building support. Lura confirmed that Lady Argala was claiming medical uncertainties about the hybrid pregnancy, suggesting that additional monitoring and possibly intervention might be necessary to ensure House Maris's genetic stability. She's being careful to frame everything in terms of medical ethics rather than politics. Lura reported, "It's subtle but effective. Even some progressive counselors are concerned." Ambassador Farrow, when consulted, offered both diplomatic support and practical advice. Earth has experience with genetic hybridization, though nothing quite like this, she told them during a secure communication. I can arrange for human medical experts to consult with Dr. Rez, providing comparison data that might reassure the council. By evening, Kaylee had formally requested the matriarch heir audience, invoking ancient protocol that Lady Argala couldn't easily refuse. The session was scheduled for the following day in the inner council chamber, a space used only for the most sensitive house matters. That night, as they prepared for the confrontation ahead, Aaron noticed Kaylee standing at the window of their quarters, her silhouette outlined against the starlit sky of Ethyra Prime. "What are you thinking?" he asked, joining her. "About cycles," she replied softly. "My mother and I are replaying a pattern that has existed in House Maris for millennia, the tension between preservation and evolution." She turned to face him. "But this time feels different." "Because of the child?" "Partly, but also because of you." She reached up to touch his face gently. "You've helped me see beyond the boundaries I always took for granted." The moment between them deepened, the bonding pulse thrumming with shared emotion. When Kaylee leaned forward to kiss him, it felt like the natural conclusion to a conversation they'd been having since they met, tentative at first, then with growing certainty. Later, as they lay together in what had been Kaylee's chamber, but now felt like theirs, Aaron marveled at how much had changed in such a short time. From strangers thrust together by accident to partners united by choice, their journey had been anything but conventional. "No regrets?" he asked quietly, his hand resting on the curve of her abdomen where their child grew. "None," Kaylee answered, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. "Whatever comes tomorrow, we face it together." The inner council chamber was ancient, its walls carved from the living crystal of Ethyra Prime itself. Unlike the grand public spaces of House Maris, this room was intimate, designed for truth-telling rather than ceremony. A circular table of polished stone dominated the center, with 13 chairs arranged around it, one for the matriarch, one for the heir, and 11 for senior council members. Lady Argala was already seated when Kaylee and Aaron arrived, her expression impassive. The councilors rose in formal acknowledgement of the heir's presence, then resumed their seats as Kaylee and Aaron took their places opposite Argala. "This audience is convened at the heir's request," Argala began formally. "As tradition dictates, no recording will be made, and all words spoken here are bound by council oath." The councilors murmured their assent, touching the crystal inlays on the table that glowed briefly in response, a symbolic activation of the oath. "I have requested this audience to address concerns regarding my pregnancy and the future of House Maris," Kaylee stated, her voice clear and composed. "It has come to my attention that questions have been raised about the medical implications of this cross-species conception." Lady Argala inclined her head slightly. "As matriarch, it is my duty to ensure the genetic integrity and succession stability of House Maris. This unprecedented situation naturally raises questions that must be addressed." "Questions, yes," Kaylee agreed, "but also opportunities." For the next hour, the discussion circled around medical concerns, succession protocols, and the broader implications for Etherin society. Aaron observed the councilors carefully, noting which ones seemed genuinely concerned about medical uncertainties versus those who appeared to be aligned with Argala's political agenda. Dr. Rez, present in her capacity as chief xenogeneticist, provided detailed medical information about the pregnancy's progress and the successful integration of human and Etherin genetic material. "The child's development is proceeding normally in all respects," she concluded. "While there are naturally aspects we are observing for the first time, there is no medical evidence suggesting any risk to either Lady Kaylee or House Maris's genetic lineage." "Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence," countered an elderly counselor aligned with Argala. "The long-term implications cannot be known at this stage." "That is true of all life," Aaron interjected, speaking for the first time. "Every child, regardless of species, represents both continuity and possibility." Several counselors looked surprised at his contribution, but none challenged his right to speak. "Cultural attaché Cade raises an interesting point," said a middle-aged counselor that Lura had identified as potentially supportive. "House Maris has always adapted to changing circumstances. Our genetic lineage has incorporated beneficial traits throughout our history." "Under controlled circumstances," Argala emphasized, "with careful consideration and council oversight." "And what oversight do you propose in this case, Mother?" Kaylee asked directly. Argala's expression remained neutral, but Aaron sensed the calculation behind her eyes. "Given the unprecedented nature of this conception, I propose a specialized council committee to monitor developmental milestones and make recommendations regarding appropriate interventions if necessary." "Interventions?" Kaylee's voice sharpened. "The life-bearer's protection explicitly prevents such interference." "Medical necessity overrides traditional protections," Argala countered smoothly, "as has been established in previous council rulings." This was the crux of Argala's strategy. Aaron realized, by framing potential interference as medical rather than political, she was attempting to circumvent the ancient protections that surrounded the life-bearer. "There is no medical necessity," Dr. Rez stated firmly. "All evidence indicates a healthy pregnancy." "At present," Argala acknowledged, "but we must prepare for all possibilities." The debate continued, with counselors gradually revealing their positions through questions and comments. It became clear that the council was relatively evenly divided, with several members still undecided. As the discussion reached a natural pause, Kaylee straightened in her seat. Aaron felt a subtle shift through their bond, a decision made, a course set. "Honored Council," Kaylee began, her voice taking on a formal cadence that immediately commanded attention. As heir to House Maris and as life-bearer, I have listened to these concerns with an open mind. I acknowledge the unprecedented nature of this conception and the questions it naturally raises. She placed both hands on the table, palms down, a traditional gesture signifying truth-speaking. I propose a compromise that respects both tradition and necessity. I will consent to enhanced monitoring of the pregnancy and developmental milestones after birth, conducted jointly by Dr. Rez and a council-appointed medical observer. Several counselors nodded approvingly, but Kaylee wasn't finished. However, she continued, I invoke the matrilineal sovereignty clause of House Maris's founding charter. As direct descendant of matriarch Elissa Sire, I claim sole authority over all genetic decisions regarding my child. No intervention may be performed without my explicit consent. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. The matrilineal sovereignty clause was rarely invoked, an ancient provision that predated even the council itself, establishing the absolute authority of the founding matriarch's direct line in matters of genetic succession. Lady Argala's composure finally cracked, her eyes widening in surprise. That clause has not been invoked in 3 millennia, yet it remains valid law. Kaylee replied steadily. Unless the council wishes to challenge the founding charter of House Maris itself? The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. Challenging the charter would be unprecedented and potentially destabilizing for all Ethyran houses, whose authority ultimately derived from similar founding documents. After a tense moment, the most senior counselor spoke. The heir's invocation appears valid under ancient law. While the council may establish monitoring protocols with the heir's consent, the matrilineal sovereignty clause does indeed grant Lady Kaylee final authority over genetic decisions regarding her child. Lady Argala's expression hardened, but she was too skilled a politician to display outright anger. Very well. The council will establish appropriate monitoring protocols, with the understanding that the heir maintains sovereign authority under the founding charter. The compromise was formally recorded, with both Kaylee and Argala acknowledging the agreement. As the session concluded, Aaron sensed both victory and ongoing tension. They had won this round. But Lady Argala was not one to accept defeat permanently. As they left the chamber, Dr. Rez fell into step beside them. An impressive strategic move, she murmured. The matrilineal sovereignty clause is almost forgotten in modern Ethyran law, but its roots go deeper than even council authority. My mother taught me to study our history thoroughly, Kaylee replied with a hint of irony, though I doubt she expected me to use that knowledge against her. She will adapt, Dr. Rez warned. The matriarch always finds a way to pursue her goals. Then we'll adapt as well, Aaron said, his hand finding Kaylee's. Together, the months that followed brought both peace and preparation. With the council compromise in place, Kaylee's pregnancy progressed without political interference, though the agreed-upon monitoring meant regular examinations by both Dr. Rez and the council-appointed observer, a respected geneticist named Varen, who proved to be thorough but fair. Aaron and Kaylee settled into a rhythm of shared life, their relationship deepening beyond the political alliance it had begun as. The bonding pulse between them strengthened into something more profound, a connection that transcended both Ethyran biology and human emotion, becoming something unique to them. Lady Argala maintained a formal distance, publicly supporting the pregnancy, while privately continuing to build her coalition among the conservative houses. Lura kept them informed of her mother's movements, though even she admitted that Argala had become more careful, sharing less with her inner circle. As Kaylee entered the final trimester of pregnancy, preparations began for the birth itself, a process that would combine Ethyran biological traditions with human medical practices under Dr. Rez's supervision. The gestational chamber will initiate release when the child is fully developed, Dr. Rez explained during one examination. The process is similar to human birth in many ways, though typically less physically demanding for Athyran mothers due to the chamber's specialized functions. Aaron found himself increasingly drawn to the role of father, a position he had never imagined for himself, especially not under such extraordinary circumstances. He studied both human and Athyran childcare practices, worked with Kaylee to prepare their quarters for the infant's arrival, and found himself having long conversations with Ambassador Pharaoh about the challenges of raising a child between two cultures. My parents were diplomats too, Pharaoh told him during one such discussion. I grew up on 4 different planets before I was 12. It wasn't always easy, but it gave me perspectives I couldn't have gained any other way. Our child won't just be between cultures, Aaron pointed out. They'll be both cultures simultaneously, genetically, politically, symbolically. All the more reason to ensure they know they're loved for themselves, not for what they represent, Pharaoh replied wisely. One evening, as Athyra's twin sons sat in a spectacular display of color, Aaron found Kaylee in the nursery they had prepared. She stood by the crystalline cradle, a Maris family heirloom adapted for their child's needs, her expression thoughtful. "Credit for your thoughts?" he asked, joining her. "I was thinking about names," she said, looking up with a smile. Athyran tradition calls for a name that honors ancestry, while human custom seems more flexible. "We could choose both," Aaron suggested, "an Athyran name and a human one." Kaylee considered this. "That feels right. A name for each heritage, just as they will have a place in each world." She turned to face him fully. "Aaron, there's something I've been meaning to ask you." "What is it?" "When this child comes, and after the formal presentations and ceremonies are complete." She hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. "Would you consider a journey to Earth? I would like to see your world, to understand that part of our child's heritage." The request surprised and touched him. "I'd like nothing more," he said honestly. "Earth is complicated and beautiful and flawed, but it's part of who I am, part of who our child will be. Then we'll make plans." Kaylee decided, once the child is strong enough to travel. As they stood together in the quiet of the nursery, the bonding pulse between them hummed with shared purpose and growing love. Whatever lay ahead, political challenges, cultural adjustments, the everyday miracle of raising a child, they would navigate it together. The birth came 3 weeks later, heralded by the distinctive silver-blue glow of Kaylee's gestational chamber activating its release phase. Dr. Rez had prepared them for the process, but the reality was still overwhelming in its intensity and beauty. Aaron remained at Kaylee's side throughout, their bond transmitting emotions too profound for words as their child emerged into the world, small but perfect, with violet skin a shade lighter than Kaylee's, and eyes that, when briefly opened, showed a striking blue-silver blend. "A daughter," Dr. Rez announced, her professional demeanor briefly giving way to genuine joy. Healthy and strong, as the infant was placed in Kaylee's arms, Aaron felt a new connection form, the bonding pulse extending to include their child in its resonance. It was unlike anything he had experienced before, a sense of completeness that transcended his understanding. "She's beautiful," he whispered, gently touching his daughter's delicate hand. "She is," Kaylee agreed, her voice filled with wonder. "And she is ours. Aaron, not House Maris's, not Earth's, not a symbol or a political achievement, just ours." In that moment, all the complications of their union, the accidental beginning, the political maneuvering, The cultural adjustments seemed distant and unimportant compared to the reality of their child. The formal presentation of the child to House Maris took place 7 days later. As tradition dictated, Lady Argala presided as matriarch, her expression carefully neutral as she performed the ancient rituals of acknowledgement. House Maris recognizes this child as of the bloodline, she proclaimed before the assembled nobles and officials. May she bring strength and wisdom to our lineage. Kaylee and Aaron had chosen names as discussed, an Ethyran name that honored Kaylee's lineage while subtly acknowledging new beginnings, and a human name that connected to Aaron's family tradition. Alyssa Lyra Sire Cade, Kaylee announced formally, daughter of House Maris and Earth, heir of 2 worlds. The name Alyssa, shared with the founding matriarch of House Maris, was both a political statement and a personal choice. By invoking the founder's name, Kaylee reminded all present of the matrilineal sovereignty clause that protected their daughter from interference. Lyra, a constellation visible from both Earth and Ethyra Prime, represented the bridge between worlds that their child embodied. As the ceremony concluded, Lady Argala approached them privately. For the first time since the pregnancy began, her expression showed something beyond political calculation, a hint of genuine emotion as she looked at her granddaughter. She has the Maris eyes, Argala observed quietly, even with the human coloration. She does, Kaylee agreed. Argala's gaze shifted between Kaylee and Aaron. You have changed House Maris irrevocably, she said, her tone unreadable. Whether that change brings strength or weakness remains to be seen. Change itself is neither, Aaron replied. It's what we make of it that matters. Something like respect flickered in Argala's eyes. Perhaps. She looked once more at the child, then added, The Council has ratified the monitoring protocols we agreed upon. I trust you will honor that compromise. We will, Kaylee assured her, just as we trust the Council will respect the matrilineal sovereignty clause. With a formal nod, Argala withdrew, leaving them with the impression that while open conflict had been averted, the underlying tension remained. The matriarch had accepted this battle's outcome, but the larger struggle for House Maris's future continued. In the months that followed, Aaron and Kaylee found a new balance in their lives, adapting to parenthood while maintaining their respective roles in human-Ethyran relations. The child, Alyssa, thrived under their care, displaying traits of both species in ways that fascinated Dr. Rez and the other xenogeneticists who monitored her development. Her cellular regeneration is remarkable, Dr. Rez reported during one examination. She appears to have inherited the best aspects of both physiologies, Ethyran sensory acuity and human adaptability. As promised, they began planning a journey to Earth when Alyssa reached 6 months of age. The diplomatic implications were significant. The first Ethyran human child visiting humanity's homeworld would be a historic moment. But for Aaron and Kaylee, the personal meaning outweighed the political. I want her to know both her worlds, Kaylee explained to Ambassador Farrow as they discussed the arrangements. To feel at home on Earth as well as Ethyra Prime. It won't always be easy, Farrow cautioned. She'll face curiosity, wonder, and occasionally misunderstanding on both worlds. But she'll also have opportunities no one else has had before. The day before their scheduled departure for Earth, Aaron and Kaylee took Alyssa to the palace gardens for a final walk among the familiar surroundings. The baby was alert and curious, her silver blue eyes taking in the exotic flora with evident interest. As they paused beside the fountain where they had shared so many important conversations, Laura joined them, her expression warm as she greeted her niece. The house will seem empty without you, she told them. Even Mother has admitted as much, though not in so many words. We'll return, Kaylee assured her. This is still Alyssa's home, one of her homes. And how do you feel about seeing Earth, sister? Laura asked curiously. Kaylee glanced at Aaron, a smile playing at her lips. Nervous, excited, ready to understand that part of who we are now. As the twin suns began to set, casting their familiar patterns of light through the crystal structures of the garden, Aaron found himself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this point. From an accidental pregnancy during a ceremonial dance to a family bound by choice as well as circumstance, their path had been anything but predictable. The ancient starlight chandeliers that had cracked during that fateful night had been replaced in the grand hall, not with identical replicas as tradition would have dictated, but with new designs that incorporated elements of both Etherean and human artistry. Like the chandeliers, House Maris itself was changing, adapting to new realities while maintaining its core strength. That evening, as they put Alyssa to bed in preparation for the journey ahead, Kaylee turned to Aaron with an expression of quiet contentment. When the injector malfunctioned that night, I thought my life as I knew it was over, she said softly, and it was. But not in the way I feared. Aaron drew her close, the bonding pulse between them now a familiar comfort. Sometimes endings are just beginnings in disguise. Indeed. Kaylee smiled up at him. And our beginning, unconventional as it was, has led us here. To a future I never imagined, but wouldn't trade for anything. As Alyssa slept peacefully in her cradle, Aaron and Kaylee stood together at the window of their quarters, watching the stars emerge in the Etherean sky. Tomorrow they would journey to Earth, continuing the adventure that had begun with an accidental pregnancy and a diplomatic crisis, but had transformed into something far more profound, a bridge between worlds, built one choice at a time. In the soft starlight, Kaylee brushed Aaron's hair back from his forehead, an echo of their earliest moments together, now infused with the depth of all they had shared. Whatever comes next, we face it together, she said, repeating the promise that had carried them through each challenge. Together. Aaron agreed, sealing the word with a kiss that contained all the wonder of their unlikely journey. From strangers thrust together by circumstance to family bound by love, creating a future that neither world could have imagined alone.